Hi, I'm Javier, and I'm the president of the Urban Planning Coalition.
Hi, I'm Mari, and I'm the APA representative for the Urban Planning Coalition.
This is our annual fall symposium, and we are talking about affordable housing today.
And it's specific to Silicon Valley. We're examining homelessness and the underserved. We're looking at how tech companies influence the housing market, and we're also looking at creative design solutions to sort of address the housing problem. I'd like to introduce my fellow teammates on the Urban Planning Coalition. This is Rucha. She's absolutely fantastic.
Hi everyone, I'm the AEP representative at Urban Planning Coalition, and I welcome everybody to the symposium.
And over here we have Karen, who is also fantastic. We're all pretty fantastic.
Hi, I am the secretary for the Urban Planning Coalition Club.
My name is Javier, and I am the president of the Urban Planning Coalition this year. And as many of you know, this is an annual tradition. Every year we organize this event, and we choose a topic that we feel is relevant to the planning community, but also relevant to the general public. So this year we decided to talk about affordable housing. And as planners, affordable housing is we have to create equitable communities. So it's one of our missions, and I feel that it's a topic that's really important this year, especially here in the Bay Area. It's become very difficult to have affordable housing in the Bay Area because we have a very prosperous economy, and it's an economy that's constantly changing, and we have a population that's growing very rapidly. So it's become a huge issue. And today we're going to hear from planners in the Silicon Valley who are creating pathways to affordable housing. So the topics that we're looking at today are ways to kind of protect populations that are vulnerable from becoming displaced or homeless. We're also looking at some of the designs in affordable communities and how that's changed over time and how innovative these designs have become. And then we are going to look at the tech industry and see how that has affected the housing market in the Silicon Valley. To kick off our event, I would like to present Jackie Morales-Ferran. Earlier this week, she was appointed the Director of Housing for the City of San Jose. Before that, she served for 7 years as the Assistant Housing Director. Before that, she worked as the Housing and Neighborhood Development Director for the City of Denver. And just from looking at her experience, we can tell that she is very committed to creating equitable communities. She is ready to take on huge challenges like creating affordable housing in San Jose. And without further ado, let's welcome Jackie Morales-Ferran.
I first want to acknowledge that I have a couple of staff from the housing department who are participating today, and they work really hard with me to get things done. You're going to be hearing from Patrick Heisinger. Wave your hand, Patrick. And he works on our homeless development side and finding opportunities where we can build housing quickly to respond to the issue of homelessness. And then we also have Wayne Chen, who's leading our efforts. Wayne. Specifically right now on the apartment rent ordinance, and we typically think of that as rent control, and both of them are working tirelessly to address the issue of housing and homelessness on a daily basis, and so I want to thank them for their work. I want to tell you a little bit first about the housing department. San Jose is the 10th largest city, as you know, in the country, and we're the 3rd largest in California. And so it's really important that we actually have a housing department who's focused only on, or primarily on, finding affordable housing solutions in the city. We also are working very hard on the issue of homelessness, and we also invest and provide grants to San Jose's poorest neighborhoods in order to address capital and social infrastructure needs. I'm really proud to be working for the housing department because we've been, frankly, a leader in the state in providing affordable housing. We've created 18,000 affordable apartments And as a result, we've really been a leader nationally in working on this issue. So we are very proud of our accomplishments, and we do believe that everyone here in the city should have a place to call home. No one should have to live on our streets. And so we know we still have a lot of work to do. So we're glad that you're focusing on the issue of affordable housing today. So I'm going to give you the backdrop and overview of housing in the city of San Jose. And hopefully I'm preaching to the converted, and I'll be talking a lot about statistics. The affordability crisis, housing, homeless crisis, to me, it's so clear. It impacts so many of us, and you can see the impact by the number of people who are living on our streets. So sometimes I'm surprised when people ask me, do we have a housing crisis in San Jose? And to make the case that we actually have one. But I am going to make that case today. San Jose is currently experiencing a housing crisis. A huge percentage of our residents spend a significant amount of their income on housing. Approximately 44% of our residents spend over a third of their gross incomes on rent. The average rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in San Jose was a little over $2,800 in the last quarter of 2015. This represents a 39% increase over the last 5 years. In comparison, when you look at our incomes, the incomes for the lowest wage earners have been practically stagnant. Nearly 1/2 of all jobs pay low-income wages between $19,000 and $52,000 annually. In 2015, the annual area median income for a household of 2 in San Jose was approximately $85,000, while the annual salary required to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in our community is closer to over $112,000 a year. In addition to that, we're finding a very tight apartment market. The vacancy rate this year has fluctuated between 3.3% to 6.3%, and a 5% vacancy rate is considered a healthy vacancy rate. And so if it's below that, it really demonstrates that the market is really tight and we don't have enough supply. And what this means is that we have many people who are forced to double up or triple up in order to live here. How many of our young adults are forced to live at home with their families, overstaying their welcome because of our high housing costs? We really need to be a city where everyone can live and afford to be here. Many families are experiencing housing challenges as well. Nearly 38% of households in San Jose would actually qualify for the affordable housing programs that we implement every day. This is placing a tremendous pressure on families to find suitable housing. If the current housing trends continue, our employers are going to have a very difficult time maintaining their workforce. We know that the high cost of housing is consistently cited by business groups, including the Silicon Valley Leadership Group and the Bay Area Council, as a top program for them, and that it inhibits their efforts to attract and retain talent. And if the problem is big now, it's going to get even bigger in the future. The state of California, through its regional housing needs allocation, has projected that San Jose will need to build over 26 new affordable housing homes per year for the next 8 years to meet the growing demand for our housing. We need to be a city of economic diversity. To sustain a level of our creativity, entrepreneurship, we need to be an open place, an inclusive place, a place of possibility and opportunity. The demand for all types of affordable housing creates an extremely challenging situation for the most vulnerable, unhoused members of our community. According to our recent homeless survey and homeless count, more than 4,000 people in San Jose are homeless, with over 2/3 of the unhoused living in the streets or in encampments. While some of these residents can resolve their homelessness by receiving short-term and limited assistance, over 1,400 people are chronically homeless and they require a permanent housing solution with supportive services. The average life expectancy for individuals experiencing homelessness is 25 years less than those who live in stable housing. It's a myth to believe that people who are living on the streets want to live on the streets. When we asked homeless people, when we did our recent homeless survey, would you accept housing if it's offered? 95% of people said yes. So not only do people want to be in housing, it's also really expensive to keep people on the streets. Destination Home, our local public-private partnership that is working on ending homeless in the county, just completed the largest and most comprehensive study on the public cost of homelessness. More than $3 billion worth of services went to homeless residents in the 6 years covered by the study. This is costing our community $520 million a year. We could build a lot of affordable housing with $520 million. So I've given you enough data, and I want to share this quote that I found from Pope Francis because I was doing a speech for Catholic Charities. We have at our disposal so much information and so many statistics on poverty. There is a risk of being highly informed bystanders and disembodied from these realities, or to have nice discussions that end up in verbal solutions and disengagement from the real problems. Too many words, too many words, too many words, and nothing is done. This is a risk. We know there is a housing crisis in San Jose. The statistics are heartbreaking, but they are more than just numbers. They are stories of people who look just like you and look just like me. It's too easy to paint a simplified picture of homelessness. We might imagine someone who's jobless or perhaps battling a drug addiction. And in many cases, that is part of someone's story. But here's the truth. For many people in San Jose, the only thing standing between them and homelessness is one missed paycheck, one car problem, or one medical emergency. Unlike other cities, poverty in San Jose manifests itself as homelessness. To champion affordable housing and to end homelessness in our community is to fight for the heart and soul of San Jose. The fact that we have the grossest income inequality since the Great Depression, and it's growing across the country, hurts the majority of people, not only locally, but again, all over the United States. And we know that one of the biggest expenses in people's lives is housing. So if we can lower that expense, we can make a huge impact. This is a very tangible and immediate way to create opportunity and to address inequality. So now that we've talked about all the stats and the problems, what about the solutions? So increasing the number of affordable apartments in San Jose is one solution. But I have more bad news. In 2011, the governor of California eliminated redevelopment from the toolbox of many cities, including San Jose. This eliminated $40 million of redevelopment funds that we were using to support affordable housing development. State funds, which provided one of the largest resources for affordable housing development, have been all spent. In addition, last month the governor vetoed two bills that would have provided additional resources for affordable housing by simply increasing the effectiveness of our state housing tax credit program. And if the situation on the state level is grim, it's even grimmer on the federal level. We've had significant cuts over the past 10 years towards the funding of affordable housing. The HOME program, which is our #1 housing program from the federal government, has been cut by 50% over the last 10 years. And every year it is the #1 target for being eliminated in the federal budget. The Community Development Block Grant that does lots of great investment in poor, low-income neighborhoods and also does provide support for housing has been cut by 40%. So we've lost a tremendous amount of resources over the last few years, or the last 5 to 10 years. But there are new opportunities. So locally, our inclusionary housing ordinance was affirmed unanimously by the California State Supreme Court. Inclusionary housing requires that 15% of all new market rate development on the for sale side include a percentage of affordable housing. We're not quite complete with that battle yet because the BIA has challenged the ordinance and it's now headed to the Supreme Court. But we are confident that we're going to win this battle. Last year, the City Council approved a $17 square foot impact fee on new rental construction. This fee will begin being imposed on residential development on July 1st of 2016. The other very promising news is that the city, the County of Santa Clara, and the Housing Authority have all prioritized supportive housing for the homeless. As a result, the city has funded its first 100% supportive housing development, and we have 2 additional developments coming right behind. This couldn't be achieved without this coordination and financial leveraging of all 3 public entities. Hopefully you read in the paper recently that Mayor Liccardo just announced the possibility of asking the voters to support a $250 million affordable housing bond. We're going to be conducting polling to see if we can get the public to support such an effort. And on the state level, even though most of the bond funds are all gone, we now have cap and trade funds. And we project that $400 million will be available next year, half of which is going to go to affordable housing. What's great about cap and trade is it has this connection between transportation and affordable housing, which is something that's really critical. And besides looking at funding mechanisms, locally we're also sharpening our existing tools to increase our effectiveness. As a result of council direction, we're finding ways to preserve mobile home communities in the city who are facing potential redevelopment. And we're also, as I said earlier, looking at apartment rent control and seeing how we could make it more effective. Today, you're going to be covering 3 important housing issues. Homelessness. The primary solution we housing people like to say regarding homelessness is to provide somebody with a home. However, advocates and homeless people have been saying to the homeless department, the housing department, that permanent supportive housing is just going to take too long, 3 to 5 years to get a development built. And what are we going to do in the short term? Tiny homes, legalized encampments, converting hotel motels, all of these have been raised as short-term solutions. Should we put people into substandard housing because it's better than living on the streets? How much short-term housing do we need? And if we put people in short-term housing, will the public think we've solved the problem of homelessness because they won't see it or feel it, and therefore they will feel like there's no need to do anything more? And the second issue regarding design, I think San Jose is very interesting because we're primarily a city of single-family homes, a vast array of the rich. And so how do we create more density to accommodate more people? Do residents even want to live in denser housing in San Jose? Will they get out of their cars and will they walk? Can affordable housing be innovative and sustainable? What about secondary units, micro units, multi-generational housing, co-housing, modular housing? All of those different types of housing types are now part of the discussion. And then I've talked a lot about lower income people and homeless people, but what about our middle income workers and their challenges? What kind of housing are we producing there to address their needs? And then lastly, how can we decrease development costs to produce affordable housing? The last topic you'll be exploring today is regarding technology and how technology firms play a role in Silicon Valley. Since we are considered the capital of Silicon Valley in innovation, tech firms play a significant role in our economy. But many of them consider themselves global citizens. But what role are they playing here in San Jose and in the county to solve affordable housing problems? I certainly don't have all the solutions. And so I invite you to approach these topics with an open mind and ask lots of questions. Most importantly, these discussions that you're having today are really just a first step. To solve the housing crisis, we need your community support. We have a big task, but with commitment, dedication, and the efforts of all the people in the room today, we can make a difference in the lives of thousands of San Jose residents who call this city home. Please join me in solving the problem of our housing crisis. Good luck, have fun, and any of you want to tell me what solutions you came up with, you know how to find me. So thank you again.
First, I'd like to thank Jackie Morales-Ferran for her insightful keynote address. Thank you very much. We have an exciting and hopefully reflective and context-sensitive symposium today as we try to understand and explore the problem of homelessness and lack of affordable housing. As Javier and Jackie indicated, we have 3 panels today. The first panel is about housing for vulnerable communities and solutions for the displaced and the homeless. We will take a lunch break after that, maybe at around 11:20 to 11:30, and then we will reconvene here at 12:30. The lunch will be out at the same place where we had the breakfast today in the morning. So regarding the first panel, first, let me set up a little bit of the context. Jackie provided some great statistics about the homelessness issue, and let me try to focus on a few more of them in some great detail. Around 6,500 people are homeless as we sit here today in the Santa Clara County itself. 71% are unsheltered, and more troubling, approximately 1/4 of the homeless people are children or young adults, meaning people less than 24 years of age or equal. So the reason I'm throwing out the statistic at you is the popular image is of a single male adult as being homeless, while that's not really the case in many scenarios. There are families, there are young children who are out on the streets in the night. And these are the nights of January of 2015, when it's really cold out there. 30% of people surveyed, homeless people surveyed in 2015, had spent at least one night in a prison or a jail. So there's a strong link between homelessness and policing and correctional facilities and the whole infrastructure there. Now, prior to 2015, the lowest homeless count was in 2007. So both 15 and 7 are periods of economic boom. So there seems to be some link at least between the two, or there could be some policy reasons for behind that too that we will explore in the panel today. So without further ado, let me invite the panelists. Colleen Haley, would you like to come over? Keely, Robert Aguirre. Our fourth panelist is not here right now, so we'll wait on. So let me briefly introduce the 3 panelists. Colleen is the communication and engagement specialist at Destination Home, and prior to that, she had served for 6 years for California State Legislature. Robert Aguirre is an advocate, organizer, activist, and educator for and about homeless issues, and he and his wife were in the jungle or the homeless encampment before it was taken down. Key Lee is the director of Santa Clara County Office of Housing and Homelessness and Support Services, and this office was created by the County Board of Supervisors and is very active in increasing the supply of housing and supportive services in the county. So for the format of the panel, this is what I propose to the panelists, that we take around 5 to 10 minutes each panelist so that they can provide a broad overview of their views on displacement of vulnerable communities and homelessness. And then we will throw open this panel to the audience. And I hope that there are many insightful, innovative questions and responses so that we can get some good solutions for Jackie at the end of the panel. So shall I propose that we begin with Keely?
Good morning, everybody. Keely, County's Director of the Office of Supportive Housing. So I'll just have some brief remarks. The first thing that I wanted to say is we assume, of course, as Jackie indicated, that there is an affordable housing crisis. And I want to reiterate that the affordable housing crisis affects lower income households and special needs households disproportionately. The National Low Income Housing Coalition has a lot of great policy briefs and information about the affordable housing crisis nationwide and how people who are on fixed incomes, like seniors, people with developmental disabilities, people who rely on supplemental security income, those individuals are disproportionately affected by the lack of affordable housing. And as urban planning students, I think one thing to consider is to really, how do we create a community for all of our special needs populations, for all of our residents? You know, if you think about the regional housing needs allocation, the RENA numbers break down by income thresholds, but they lump very low income and extremely low income numbers together, and they don't even speak to the special needs population. So those who are earning about 15% of the area median income. So I think more attention needs to be focused on those communities, and I'll talk a little bit about why in a moment. So the question of homelessness, you know, just take for a moment that it is an issue that is affecting everyone and something that we should try to solve. The first question that I would pose to people who are interested in this area is really, who's responsible? What is the role of each entity to solve the issue? And as you peel it back, you'll see that there are many issues all rolled up into one, and that's why it takes a collaborative effort between Destination Home, individuals and activists, cities, and the county, all working together. In the 2010 Federal Strategic Plan on Ending Homelessness, the Fed says there are essentially three issues around that create the homelessness problem. One is the lack of affordable housing. Two is the inability of wages to keep up with cost of living. And the third is the lack of community resources as a result of to address the needs of people with serious mental illness. So these three issues are very complex and they are overlapping. And so that's why it really is incumbent upon all of our agencies to work together. Kind of related to that is, if you think, I think a lot of people know what cities do. Not a lot of people know what counties in California do. I mean, counties in California in many ways are administrative arms of the state. We administer temporary assistance for needy families, which is known as CalWORKs in California. So in some states, TANF is administered at the state level. In California, TANF or CalWORKs is administered at the local level. In some states, states administer and deliver specialty mental health services for people who are Medi-Cal and who are poor. In California, counties are the managed care entities for those individuals. So counties in California are really providing a lot of the social safety net and health services. And this is important because those services are critical to making investments in affordable and supportive housing work for our most needy populations. And so I think sometimes I'll speak to cities and they'll say, you know, the county is responsible for homeless people. And then I'll say that the cities are responsible for affordable housing. And so we get into this great beer debate, you know, about who's responsible. And the reality is that we have to be working together. And even within the county departments that administer these programs, the county departments are responsible for administering specific programs, but they don't have a mission of ending homelessness. You know, the Department of Family and Children's Services is responsible for the child welfare system. They're not responsible for getting everyone who's ever touched the system off the streets if they have, if they've been homeless, even though there's a high correlation between the involvement in the child welfare system and homelessness. The Specialty Mental Health Department is responsible for administering a specific type of program and services. They're not responsible necessarily for getting individuals who might have a serious mental illness off the streets and into housing. So, and yet, housing, or the lack of affordable housing or supportive housing, impacts the ability of every county department to deliver effective services. And so that's why we, as a county, created the Office of Supportive Housing in July of 2014. And it's because supportive housing became one of the key issues and we have to do something about it. The county has always played some type of role in the development of affordable and supportive housing. In the past, we had the Office of Affordable Housing. We always had the Housing and Community Development Department. But not until December of 2014 did the Board of Supervisors really establish a new policy. They said that, creating affordable housing and supportive housing for extremely low-income individuals and families and people with special needs, serious mental illness, seniors on fixed incomes, transition-age youth coming out of the foster care system. That is a core service that the county needs to try to deliver in order to help individuals and make our departments more effective. And I think the county has a unique role because we have a county-wide lens. Cities coordinate with each other, but generally they are focused within their boundaries, and the county has a county-wide lens. And when we say supportive housing, we mean something a little different than just affordable housing. So supportive housing assumes that individuals, in addition to having very fixed incomes, around 15 to 20% of an area median income, so that might be like $12,000 to $15,000 a year. They need some type of supportive services in order to help them obtain that housing and maintain that housing, even though services and then service needs will fluctuate over time. So creating supportive services and knitting together the services of different departments and tying them with housing developments, and then thinking about how to leverage state and federal funds like Medi-Cal and Medicaid, Medicare, to maintain those supportive services are part of the puzzle that we have to figure out. And I think urban planning professionals have generally been focused on structures, land use policy, but as we try to think about the needs of these special needs populations where services are required, I think we might want to consider broadening your research, thinking about how these federal systems and state systems and county systems can be incorporated into the planning process. And then I'll just make a few final comments about the Office of Supportive Housing, what the county is doing. So the Office of Supportive Housing, created in July 2014, housing and homelessness is one of the county's top 3 priorities. When I first started this role in 2011, it was me, another guy, maybe another person. And now the county's Office of Supportive Housing, at the end of the day, we're looking at about 60 FTEs, extreme budget growth. So the county is putting resources into this issue, and we're trying to work with our partners to address it. Recently, the county formed the Housing Task Force, and we've been meeting since April. The Housing Task Force will sunset in December. And I would say that the arc of the Housing Task Force is really around 3 issues. One is, how do we create a supportive housing system? And by supportive housing system, I mean some people need permanent housing with deep subsidies with supportive services. Some people need rapid rehousing, a type of housing which is shorter term but short-term subsidies and services, and some need homelessness prevention, one-time assistance. And we've been knitting together that service system, and mainly using tenant-based rental assistance like a housing choice voucher. You can take it to a landlord and try to use that subsidy. And we're up to our eyeballs in subsidies. I think the Housing Authority recently reported that they had 1,300 or 1,600 housing choice or Section 8 voucher holders who are unable to locate an apartment at which to use their housing subsidy. So the real issue at hand now is, how can we increase production, and what can we do to create and construct new units of affordable and supportive housing. And so one of the Housing Task Force's priority areas is development of supportive housing. Jackie just mentioned a couple of projects. The county is also funding 100% supportive housing projects, and we're providing services at all of the upcoming supportive housing projects. And then finally, this has to be sustained, so we need land use policies, and we need specific revenue sources to sustain these services over time. Okay, thank you.
Hello there, my name's Colleen and I'm with Destination Home, and I would like to start by saying that in this region there's a tremendous amount of energy and will to end homelessness, and it's something that you should be proud of in this county. I don't think it's like that in every county. Destination Home was actually, my sign keeps moving. Destination Home was actually born out of the concept and idea that we need to stop managing homelessness and start doing something about it. Elected leaders from every spectrum came together and decided that it was time to come up with real evidence-based, data-driven solutions. And they continue to operate like that and provide solutions that we can build upon and grow and sustain for the future. So I just wanted to let you know there's a tremendous amount of pride that you should have for your elected officials, both at the county and the city level. As I said, Destination Home was born out of the concept that we need to start solving this problem. 2008 is when it was formed from a Blue Ribbon Commission with leadership from then Mayor Chuck Reed and Supervisor Don Gage. As I said, they realized old solutions were not working, and so they needed to come up with solutions that were, and they came together as a public-private partnership. So it's not just nonprofits, it's not just the city and the county, but it's corporations, it's other nonprofits, it's community groups and activists that are working on these solutions together and coordinating. And that's tremendously difficult to do, as you can imagine. Government works very slowly, and solutions are hard to come by. But there have been many wins along the way when it comes to solving homelessness. And the most successful approach that they've come up with so far is to either get someone who's already housed to keep them housed and to prevent homelessness, and for folks that are unfortunately living on the streets to provide housing as quickly as they can. This is called the Housing First approach, and it's a nationally recognized evidence-based intervention to end homelessness that centers on providing people with housing as quickly as possible. And this approach has the benefit of being consistent with most people experiencing homelessness want and seek to achieve. It's also a primary treatment option for homeless individuals and families. I also feel like homelessness is a highly relatable issue, or it should be, because the scary reality, as our Director of Housing mentioned, is that most people are a paycheck or a crisis away from being homeless due to high rental costs, unaffordability of actually purchasing a home, and any other thing that can go wrong. So there's no wiggle room at all for most of us. Very precarious situation to be in. It should also be a highly unifying issue because homelessness affects everyone: men, women, children, people from diverse backgrounds and education levels. So if we can put ourselves in that position of seeing our life or our family members as something that could be put in a situation of being homeless one day, I think it makes it easier to identify and come up with solutions and all work together on this. As was mentioned, a large part of the non-affordability in this region is because we have a housing, jobs imbalance at every level and only a few tools to create more affordable housing. So what Destination Home does, among other things, working with nonprofits and the government entities, is we work to create more housing options. We actually need 6,000 housing options within the county, 6,000 more units to be able to house our current homeless population. and we have a 5-year community plan in place to do that. We are prioritizing chronically homeless, those folks that have been on the streets for a prolonged amount of time. They're the most costly to our system when it comes to medical, social services, and the judicial system. So that's where we are, that's where we're going, and we're very committed to working with everyone involved. So please let us know if you're interested in finding out more, and we'd be willing to work with student groups. We're looking for more activists as well. So please let us know if you'd like to become involved.
Well, good morning. My name is Raul Perales. I am the District 3 City Council Representative for the City of San Jose. Apologize at first for running in here a little bit tardy this morning, but it is an honor to be here and to have you as an audience this morning and to speak to you a little bit about what the City of San Jose and what myself are trying to do here locally. So first off, knowing that we're in the capital of the Silicon Valley, knowing that we have a figure, about 6,000 as you've heard, that are homeless, and being in one of the richest areas really in the world, knowing that we've just had a 70,000 plus seat stadium put up nearby where we can feed people, utilize restrooms for them. It's not necessarily housing, but it certainly was a public-private partnership, and it went up pretty quick. And to know that we have a figure here of 6,000 seems to me like that shouldn't be such a daunting of a task. But we are nevertheless struggling to still house the individuals here in our county and specifically here in our city. And it is the number one issue that we're dealing with on the council and a number one priority issue that we've made as well. And certainly solutions aren't going to be overnight, but we are looking for short-term solutions as well as long-term. And I'm going to speak to you about 4 areas that we're working on, 2 that are a little bit more controversial and 2 that really aren't. So number 1 is tenant rights. And this one is definitely probably the most controversial. And this is also not an end-all, be-all solution. This is one of our short-term tools that we are looking at and that, quite frankly, we really haven't utilized in the last decade or more to see how we could strengthen that and how we could make it feasible for people to be able to stay or feel more comfortable to stay within their homes, especially with the up and downs of the market. And this is not an easy task, but certainly it's a tool that we want to see if we can utilize a lot better. I myself actually grew up in a rent-controlled apartment, and I was able to stay there with my family throughout elementary, middle, and high school. And I can guarantee you I would not have gone to Cupertino High School, remaining in the west side of San Jose, if it wasn't for rent control. And my family would have had to move like a number of other families have had to. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. I see it as one tool and a very successful tool that we can utilize, but certainly not the only one. And most definitely, the biggest argument on the other side of sort of this short-term solution is a more realistic long-term solution, and that's definitely something that we're striving for as well. And this one is not such controversial, which is just build more housing in general, whether it's at market rate, whether it's affordable or fully supportive. We need more housing. We know that we have projections of a population that's going to be increasing potentially to 1.4 million here by 2030, 2040, and potentially even more as we see a lot of growth inward into urban environments, urban cities. So we know that's coming. We know we need more housing, and there's really no argument or struggle there. Problem is we can't build that fast enough. Housing that we're building now isn't going to have doors open for another couple years, and we're certainly not building affordable housing fast enough. And that's really the next area for building and for long-term solution. And this one goes back, unfortunately, to a little bit more of a controversial item, not as much as a tenant's rights, but nonetheless, this brings into the equation the term in government that I learned just a few years ago, which was NIMBY, or not in my backyard. And when we present solutions for housing the homeless, or housing those that are currently homeless, with supportive housing, as you've heard from our representative here at the county, fully supportive housing is talking about individuals that are more than likely going to need subsidies for the rest of their life. And they're going to also need some services as well to go along with this housing. This isn't going to be traditional short-term, or maybe an individual that needs to just get a leg up for a few months or a year. This will be people that we've had chronically homeless 15 plus years living on the street, and we now realize clearly there's those of us that feel it within internally within our hearts or within our minds that we shouldn't allow people to be homeless. We shouldn't allow our fellow men and women to be homeless. But on top of that, for those that are a little bit more fiscal minded, we've also realized that it's more fiscally responsible as well to be able to house people versus allow them to remain homeless and then subsidize them with ambulance transportation, visits to the emergency room, you name it. And so really there's a shared collective thought where we understand it's better to house people than to allow them to remain homeless. But where the trouble becomes is, well, where is that going to be? And where I've taken a stance and to really set an example within my district, and especially here in the downtown core, knowing that we have already sort of a magnet area for individuals, whether they're homeless or not. Downtown is an area that's a magnet, especially if you're homeless, though, because it has a lot of the services. It certainly has the public transportation. It's an active hub. It doesn't make sense, and it wouldn't make sense to me if I were homeless to go down somewhere between San Jose, Morgan Hill, and find a space out there in the woods, and then try to make my way back to services every day. And that's a bit of an extreme, but the reality is that we have a core focus and a bit of a magnet for those that are without a house here in the downtown. So I wanted to set really an example to provide solutions for fully supportive housing. I want to go across the gamut as well, but this is an example I want to set for fully supportive housing right here in our downtown. And we're working on 4 different solutions right now, and I can guarantee you none of them are as easy as we would like, and certainly each one of them has a mentality of, I really love this idea and I would love to house these individuals, but why right here in my neighborhood? And so it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we deal with, but nonetheless one that we understand that we need to overcome, and certainly I think we can all agree that we need to house people, and that is much better than having them without a place. Lastly, and this one is again not so controversial, and this is partnerships. And as you see up here with the individuals that are at this table, the director of housing down there, and I guess I missed a little bit of your intro. But the partnerships are really, really important. We understand that this is a challenge we're not going to overcome alone. San Jose cannot just focus on the 4,000 individuals that are homeless within the city of San Jose. I can't just focus on the 40 plus encampments that are within the downtown or the District 3 area. And nor can I work alone, nor can the city work alone. And in fact, one of the things that we haven't done really well, the county and the city has partnered decently, and we're partnering even better moving forward. But where we have struggled throughout the years is partnering with other cities throughout the county, and as well just throughout the valley, because this certainly isn't just a Santa Clara County issue. And we need to see this as really an issue that affects all of us, and one that we all need to collectively put our heads together to be part of the solution. We can't do this if there are individual cities that have a mindset that this is an issue that they can resolve by pushing it onto or out of their city and onto another. We certainly need to be a valley where everyone can afford to live in any part of this valley. And that's definitely the mentality that I'm taking moving forward, and attempting to set those examples right here in the fastest growing urban environment in the valley, in downtown San Jose, And so I'm proud to be a partner with the individuals that are doing this here, and hopefully we can set that example. We can get more partners on board, and that indeed will include your help as well, your education of the community out there and understanding, not just from a human rights standpoint why this is important, but why it's fiscally important and responsible, and why this is something that's going to be better for everyone moving forward. So thank you again for allowing me to be here.
Hello. I'd like to speak to some of the things that were talked about earlier. First of all, Jackie, thank you very much for your keynote. I think you were very insightful in bringing out a lot of the issues that we're facing today. One of the things that you did say was talking about how if we temporarily house people, that somehow the community will consider them like the problem solved. If they're hidden, they're out of sight. Well, when the jungle was about to be closed, I went public with telling people that homelessness is soon coming to a neighborhood near you, and that's exactly what has happened. The homeless have moved out of the jungle, or they were forced out, and now they've moved into all the neighborhoods all around the city. So the city is now, and not just the city, throughout the county as well, but particularly in the city. And so these people now have moved out into neighborhoods, and they are the people that are occupying some of the alleyways, some of the areas behind grocery stores, or any other place where they can go and be hidden. They're constantly being chased around by the police and by the housing, actually through the housing department, the homeless task force, and the water district and the park rangers and a number of other groups that are rounding people up, kicking them out, taking away their belongings from them, and displacing them. This has created a lot of stress amongst the population, and so a lot of them have actually moved back into the creeks. Now that we have the cold weather approaching us, especially with this year's El Nino, we have a number of people that are being removed from the creeks in order to clean them out so that the water flows through very carefully. There's a lot of programs that are out there that are telling people to go out and get flood insurance, and that they should, reinforce their homes and make sure that there's a place for drainage, and they're taking care of all kinds of things. But the immediate need for providing a place for people that are living in the streets that have no other alternative are really going ignored. And that's one of the things that I have focused on in trying to bring this information to the public. Nobody's in your yard because they want to be there. They're there because they have nowhere else to go. They try going to public parks, they try going to other areas that maybe are less intrusive, but again, they keep getting swept from place to place. One of the things that we need to recognize is that a lot of the people that do become incarcerated are there because that's really the only place where they can get mental health services. There's just not enough capacity to be able to handle that. Although I applaud Kile's efforts in trying to address that situation, I think the realization is that there really is no immediate solution for this other than incarceration. So I would welcome Kile to consider wraparound services and continuum of care for not just the people that are in temporary housing or in shelters or even in apartments or whatever housing that they were able to come up with, but to expand this program to be able to provide these types of services for people who are in the streets. The Housing Task Force, which is a very good program that was created by Dave Cortese to address some of the problems that are occurring within the county. And as he mentioned, the government is very slow in moving, and it takes a long time to be able to get that kind of will moving in the right direction to try to resolve these problems in the very quick time frame that's necessary. And I can appreciate that, I really do. But we as a community have a responsibility. If you don't like homeless people in your neighborhood, then let's try to find a place for them. Let's see if we can set up encampments, and not just talking about one encampment. I'm talking about possibly 10 encampments, because we have 10 districts in the city, and that way this NIMBY attitude can be nipped in the bud, because nobody can say, well, not in my neighborhood, because it's in everyone's neighborhood. So I think that's a good way to go about that. The other thing is that there's 1,300 to 1,600 subsidies that were talked about. But these subsidies don't do any good if there's no place for people to use them. If every one of you were given $1 million check right now and no place to cash it, it would be just as useful. So I think we need to look at things a little bit differently. The other thing I'd like to talk about is like case management. Most of the people aren't cases and they really don't need to be managed. They're just in an unfortunate situation. There are people that are homeless for different reasons, as was mentioned, but some of these are situational homelessness. You do lose a job. You may still have a job, or you may have the ability to get another job, but you're temporarily set back. You've lost your home because you can't pay the rent. And so now you find yourself out in the street. So all you need is a little hand up so that you can get back onto your feet and start your life all over again. There's some people that have lost their homes because of illnesses, either to themselves or to someone in their family. And in their care, they've actually managed to lose their homes, and all they need is a little bit of help to get back up. Those are people that I can understand, that we can reach those people. The chronically homeless, the people that have been homeless for a long time, have lost not only their will, but their ability to be able to pick themselves up and get back into housing. So when we talk about urban planning, when we talk about trying to resolve these issues, yes, they're all very good ideas and I'm in favor of them because that is ultimately the solution. But the thing that I want to bring up is the fact that we're looking at 3-5 years away from coming up with these solutions. We don't have anything that really treats this problem with the immediate need that it needs to be addressed. We need to look at this situation and realize that we're dealing with people's lives. These are not, homeless dogs that we're going to round up and put into a shelter somewhere, or these are not, trash piles that we can just sweep up and throw into a trash bin somewhere and problem resolved. These are human beings. These are people just like you and me. And if you think about it, these would be your children, your sons, your daughters, or your parents, or your cousins, or your aunts and uncles, or somebody in your family who's homeless, and whether they have mental issues or they have other types of issues, these are things that need to be addressed. We need to address those problems and treat the problems. Now, can you imagine if all of a sudden the city were to decide, or the county, were to decide that everyone that has cancer should be rounded up and kicked out of their homes? What kind of society would we be? Now, these people have illnesses that they didn't bring on upon themselves, just like a lot of other people that are homeless that have diseases that they didn't bring on upon themselves. The results of their being homeless, or the results of them losing their job, or the results of any other situation that brought them to that condition. We need to look at this differently. We need to understand that these are people that need help. And we as a community have a responsibility to reach out and help. Every one of you here has a part in the solution. And if you just sit back and wait for somebody else to do something about it, you're not being part of this community. You're not being part of the solution. You're part of the problem. So we need to check our privilege and understand that we are in a position where we can do something about this situation, and all of us, not just the agencies, not just the county and the city governments that are here, but all of us need to work together to try to resolve this problem. I also would like to point out that this problem does not just solely exist in San Jose. We have a lot of other communities around that are quite wealthy. Monte Sereno, Los Gatos, Los Altos Hills, where there is homelessness in those communities. It's just not as obvious. And these communities need to step up as well. And whatever we can do to rally those communities to step up and provide their part in this problem, or their help in providing a solution to this problem, is anything that we can do to bring that to bear is essential. As far as tenants' rights, I'd like to point out what was recently reported in the news about what happened in Alameda. There was a fight that broke out because the city council filled the room full. Well, they didn't fill it. The landlords came in and filled the auditorium, and the people, the tenants themselves, were actually put into a side room to watch what was going on, and then the TV feed failed, and of course they became upset, and they all started trying to storm into the chambers to try to present their case. Well, a fight broke out. And if that doesn't indicate what kind of problems we're looking at, then I don't know what does. We need to understand the situation and deal with it quickly. Now, I don't want to run over my time, so I'm going to cut it short right there. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. We have around 10 to 15 minutes time before lunch, so I'll throw open the discussion to the audience. So just raise your hand and I'll come to you with my microphone.
I just have a question about the jungle and how that was handled from the county level, I guess, and from the city level down to the homeless level, and maybe some perspectives on how that was handled after the fact that it's been dispersed. And it seems like I was just thinking that it would have been an opportunity to keep it intact so you could actually provide services instead of it being now dispersed. So maybe some thoughts on that.
Maybe I'll speak to what the county did. Our role there was mainly to work with the City of San Jose's housing department to identify a certain number of individuals for whom we could incorporate or bring into our permanent supportive housing programs. So I think the planning for the jungle, the closure of the jungle, happened for several months, and county staff or contractors and city staff and contractors were out there engaging individuals to identify individuals who we could provide a subsidy and services, provide temporary housing or temporary or interim housing, and then permanent housing. So that was really our role. Could there be specific individuals that we could engage into permanent supportive housing programs and house those individuals? And I think the City of San Jose just released the report on the status of those housing options. So maybe we can dig those up and provide that to share.
Mine not working. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, in fact, I was a San Jose police officer prior to this role. I started this role January 1st. So I was actually able to see as a candidate for the 1 year while I was running for this seat from a political perspective on what was going on with the jungle, as well as years prior and that year within the police department. And certainly there's a lot of controversy in regards to the way the jungle was handled in regards to one, a lot of the favorable outcomes that came out of it, a number of things that we were striving to do, and certainly the things that have come after that we were aware of as well that were going to happen inevitably in dispersing the jungle. We did indeed give it time. There was a strategy in place, put in place a year ahead of time in regards to dedicating about $4 million. And the hope was to be able to provide the services and yes, take advantage of the fact that this was a central location where you could identify people day after day, as opposed to having to look around the city for them, which is what we're doing now. And we were able to, by January of this year, house, I believe, 167 individuals, but we still had about 70 that had vouchers, individuals that we had been working with social services, that there was no location. They had a voucher, and if we had a location available, we would have been able to house them. So even at the disbursement of the jungle, we had individuals that we were able to get a housing voucher, and we couldn't get them housing. And that's not to mention the other individuals that were there that didn't even get the voucher. So certainly, it wasn't an overnight effort. It was definitely I would say more than a year. It was about an 7-year lack of effort, and then maybe a year of effort. Previously, areas like the jungle would have been swept regularly, and they would have been dispersed. Individuals would have gone on to the next encampment, and this repetition has occurred throughout the city for a long time. Certainly not the best effort or energy, and not the best placement of our resources both our city personnel and just finances as well. But that was the way that we addressed the issue for years. And what happened at the jungle was that we stopped, and it wasn't just at that location, but at a number of locations where we stopped the sweeps. This was through the recession, this was through the downturn and the cutting of the police department. And so we ended up not doing those sweeps, and in that time, not really recognizing the growth that was happening in certain encampments, and especially here in the Story Road encampment, otherwise known as the jungle. And so that got to a point where the city was feeling as though there were inevitabilities on why they had to disperse that encampment from the pollution that was going on in the waterways to the threats of legal actions against the city from the state. And so there were movements again put in place, a good amount of money as well. Certainly didn't solve the problem, and as we've heard, what it did was it dispersed a lot of homeless individuals to now hundreds of encampments throughout the city, and that was inevitable. Again, anybody who thought that anything else was going to happen would have been foolish. So it's where we're at today in regards to now continuing to try to manage, and I would agree, put ourselves in a difficult position because it's harder now to find these individuals. It's harder to get a caseworker to work with them because they're on the move, and we're keeping them on the move.
I'd just like to follow with one comment, which is I don't think county, city departments are out there thinking about ways to displace individuals. The reason why that is happening is because while there is pressure to help meet people's basic needs, there's also pressure to remove them from, my neighborhood or your neighborhood. There's pressure from the water district and the state to keep the creeks clean. So it is the confluence of all of these pressures that elected officials and staff are trying to balance. And so it does have to have the solution to stop sweeps has to be a community engagement process. So just highlight that.
Further to that, I'd like to add that we should stop criminalizing the homeless because they're not criminals. They're just in an unfortunate situation. So as long as the city maintains their position of criminalizing them, and I understand sweeping, I understand moving people around, but when you attach that with some financial responsibility as far as a ticket or being arrested, then you make a situation worse. And the other thing is that a lot of their belongings are taken from them and they have to start all over again. And if you can imagine, it takes 8 weeks for you to get your driver's license or your ID back, and then it takes another 7 weeks or a month to get your Social Security card. How are you going to move on with your life? So I know that we have limited resources, and Jackie spoke to that. And what I would like to point out is the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice, weighed in on the city of Boise and their laws that were criminalizing the homeless. And now HUD has announced that they're going to start a program that if municipalities and cities continue the practice of criminalizing the homeless, they're going to take away their HUD funding. So this is going to only make the matter worse, because now you're going to take all the people that were getting subsidized housing are no longer going to have that money coming in. And so now we're going to have a huge influx of homeless. So we need to change our attitude. And this is again why I talk about sanctioned encampments, because then it gives people a chance to be able to recover from their losses, to be able to start working on their individual problems, and then we can start moving on to house them as housing becomes available. But the idea of moving them around from place to place is not a solution, it's insanity. It's a waste of resources, and the amount of money that is spent on doing just that could be used to provide porta potties so that people are not urinating and defecating in your neighborhood, to provide showers so they can have a place where they can feel, some sort of dignity about themselves, to be able to provide a place where they can go and they can be address all their particular needs and do it effectively as it used to be in the jungle. I'd also like to tell everyone about power Saturday Under the Stars, which is going to take place here in San Jose State on November 12th. There's a sleep out, and it's going to start at 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And the documentary Exodus from the Jungle will be shown there. And I invite everyone to please come out. If you don't want to stay out for the night, at least come and see the documentary. It would be worth your while.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there any efforts from anyone here or maybe people that you associate with different organizations and agencies to change the standard of what homeless housing is? Because it seems like if we don't provide this minimum defined standard, you get nothing. And then we end up with the quick problem, and it's just, really it just seems stupid. You know, we have to provide something that's better than what we're doing now, which is causing environmental issues in the creeks, or like we were saying, you have someone in your front yard that you have no idea who they are sleeping there, which is a concern. You know, you may have children or whatever it is, but it seems like we could do better than that. You know, at least use maybe government land, a vacant lot. There's many vacant lots all over the county, all over the city, where we could provide, you know, some minimum standard, a roof over your head, you'll stay warm. But we can't provide that because the definition is actually kind of more like the hotel rooms that we provide, which we're not able to provide. So like you said, get the vouchers, but they're worthless. So is there any movement to change that? Because it seems like we're not really filling that need. You know, I see what the Europeans are doing with the refugee crisis from the Syrians, and they're using the military to build these temporary housing for them, because the other thing is they have like tent camp cities equivalent to what we had in the jungle, but now they're taking that down because it's unsanitary and unsafe, and they're actually building like these little modular temporary housing, which is better than what they had. It's more organization, and it's just cleaner, more sanitary, and it's just better housing options. So is there any movement to do that?
I just want to know if I could step in. My name is Patrick Heisinger with the City of San Jose. I'll be on the next panel, and I'm not pubbing the next panel, but if you guys want to stick around, I will be addressing several initiatives the city will be doing more in the interim housing, as well as some permanent supportive options. So, I mean, panel, feel free to answer how you will. I just want to let folks know that there will be a lot more detail after lunch.
I'll just say that cities, the county have looked at the issue. Numerous reports have been issued. The main issues are twofold. One is, what is the standard, and whatever that standard is, what monies can you use to meet it, or what waivers do you need to reduce that standard? And the second issue is still just, where do you put it? Anything. You know, the county, for example, just postulated that we could use some parking lots, perhaps, as safe parking or something. We didn't even propose it. We didn't even suggest to fund it. And there was immediate concern in the whole neighborhood. And it was swift and it was significant. So, I mean, at some point it does come down to, where is it and what are people willing to accept?
I'd like to speak to the issues of what was brought up, the vouchers being useless. Part of that is relationship building. And everyone involved in the issue of homelessness realizes that we need to increase our relationships with landlords and apartment owners, because right now it's a choice. It's up to them if they want to take on some of our clients. Some of the vouchers, you know, don't go far enough in terms of affordability, but the ones that do, the homeless and Section 8 voucher holders are seen as a risk to landlords. So in order to facilitate that, we need to do our job and create those relationships, increase incentives, work with them, develop more of an understanding of homeless and of our clients, and make pathways for them to be able to be housed. And we're doing that. We're doing that. Everyone here I think, is involved in that. Many nonprofits are working in that issue. So we hope to be increasing the worthiness of our vouchers and of our programs, and that'll go a long way to housing the homeless and making that more of a solution than a barrier.
I'd also like to say that we lost the Sunnyvale cold weather shelter, and to temporarily replace it, there was a move by the county to put in a temporary housing unit on California and Fair Oaks Avenue in Sunnyvale. Well, the citizens were outraged by that. The people that lived in the neighborhood didn't want it in their neighborhood. They were tired of housing the people in the Sunnyvale Armory until it was knocked down, replaced with affordable housing, which I'm happy to see, but it was a loss of the cold weather shelter. So I went to the Sunnyvale City Council meeting where they were all talking about it, and the county said, well, if you provide us with an alternative, and the alternative was Ozenuka Air Force Base, where they were able to put up a temporary shelter, which is a great thing. But see, the county told the city of Sunnyvale, we're either going to put it there on California Fair Oaks, or we're going to put it at Ozenuka. It's your choice. But we're prepared to put it in. If you don't want us at Ozenuka, we're going to put it in because that's county property. So that demonstrates the will of the county to be able to do what they must do, which is to provide cold weather shelter. So what we have here is a lack of will. We have 70 units, properties that have been identified for urban development. Those 70 units are not anywhere near development. They're empty, vacant lots. You drive by them every day, you see these signs posted in front of them about some future development. All those properties could be used to house the homeless in encampments temporarily. And if the citizens fight back and say, oh no, not in my backyard, put them in everybody's backyard so nobody has an argument about just their backyard. They're in everyone's backyard. And I think that's the only solution, because if we start responding to the people that are in a particular neighborhood and say, okay, well, we're not going to do it there, we're going to put it in this other one, and then those people respond, and we just keep moving around, we say, oh, we have no place to put them. The county has proven that if there is a will, there is a way. So what we need to do is develop that will.
If I could just add just real briefly, and in fact I'll plug that if individuals want to stick around and hear a little more about this from our housing department and Patrick as he spoke. But the council here in San Jose is indeed asking those questions that you have asked, and we are indeed looking for some different solutions that have not been utilized before. One of them is with 100 modular units, as you had mentioned, that we're looking at doing a pilot program. The other is a safe parking lot program. And certainly within the inclement weather, we have a cold and inclement weather program that we want to see about overnight warming shelters, utilizing current space that the city has here. So those are just to name a few of the major ones, but we definitely have given support from our council here to think outside the box and to provide some different solutions. I will plug, go ahead and stick around for the next panel after lunch.
Sonia, do you want to?
Yes.
Last question.
This is very quick. Has the city or county considered the use of public land that the uses have become defunct for temporary housing or affordable housing? It may have to go to the ballot. So the use of public land that the uses are no longer being used for, so basically vacant public lands that could be used for affordable housing or temporary housing.
I'll say that the county staff are looking at all county-owned land to determine what is the best use. In some instances, those uses can be temporary or permanent housing. It comes down to, though, it gets more complicated when we talk about the specific property and where it's located. But for example, the county-owned land in Sunnyvale, as Robert Aguirre mentioned, was one of those parcels that we were going to use for temporary shelter.
The short answer is yes, but in fact, our defunct or city-owned land is not in a huge surplus, and we like to turn that over to the county. Actually, old City Hall building, where that's at, is now in the hands of the county as well. But for parcels of land that are publicly owned, that's where we're looking at some of these other solutions, like the safe parking lot and programs like that. We certainly are looking at our own property first as well.
And all these opportunities that they're talking about only address a small percentage of the 6,500 homeless individuals that were reported in the last count. So again, I'm going to push back on this and see if we can create the will for sanctioned encampments.
Thank you everybody, especially the panelists here.